Lori Houston's News for the Heart is dedicated to helping you give a voice to your own soul. Our hearts have the power to free us from pain and the struggles that keep us from awakening to our true essence. Join Lori now as we delve into our heart and soul to find the path that will open us to the possibilities and lead us to the life we love to live.
And good afternoon. This is Intuitive Soul and News for the Heart. I have a very special guest that I am very excited to share with you. It is Peace Mother Geeta, Sacred Song. And Peace Mother is a world-recognized Mayan peace shaman, an enlightened master, master healer, and the embodiment of the Divine Mother of the universe. I want to welcome you to the show. I'm very excited to have you on. We chatted a little bit before we started, and we really connect on a deep level, and I really am grateful for all the opportunities that we get to connect with, just the message of love and peace. And it is the most important thing of all the things that we do. Finding unconditional love, sharing, giving unconditional love, probably much more than finding, is our purpose here. It's everything that we're meant to do. And unconditional love is everywhere. It's just that we tend to let a little bit of fear distract us from that. And so to me, that's the spectrum. Love on one side, fear on the other. And when you're not feeling that love that you are going to feel today, because I know that is what is so special about our show today, is that we are going to get to experience just the bliss of unconditional love. So welcome to the show, Peace Mother. I'm very excited to have you.
Thank you, dearest Lori. Beautiful, beautiful to be with you. Divine Mother, grace, 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 grace. 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 In the end, and always in every step along the way, it's all about grace. Yeah. It's all about love, isn't it? And you said it perfectly. And really, that is the core lesson in our life path, is that there's the fear on one side, always there's the loving guidance on the other side, and the love within us to empower us to be impeccable warriors of light. And it takes grace to realize it. It takes grace to have each level of realization. And on the one hand, it's not easy. Mm-hmm. And on the other hand, it can happen in a heartbeat.
Right. What I like to say is it's really, really simple. It's just not that easy.
That is a perfect way to say it. That is it in a nutshell.
We are soul sisters. I can tell that.
Oh, yes. Well, what happens is, and this includes all of your listeners, your dear ones, is that this is also another realization that on the way to enlightenment, we must have at some point, it will take place, because it must take place, because we must understand at some point, we must wake up and have this wonderful realization of oneness, that we are all part of this one loving energy. And people who have had, for example, near-death experiences, they speak of this often, of how when they're on the other side and they're out of the limited body and out of the limited mind, now with the expanded eternal perspective, they do feel their oneness with everything. And they always say it's really indescribable, which it actually is, because human words are human words. And they're a bit, actually, compared to the divine energy, it's two different levels. And so it's very limited. We're in a box. However, our goal here on the path, each and every one of us, is to do everything we can to reach out to that eternal perspective, to reach out to that eternal wisdom, infinite wisdom, to reach out to our higher self, which is eternal and unlimited. And then when we discover is that you and I, like the Maya say, Pashin Lakech, it means you are me, I am you, we are one and the same. And that's the same as namaste. Namaste, aloha, shalom. It's the same essence. Meaning, and in its actuality, it's the absolute truth. There's only the one. There's only the one. I've also discovered that in my lifetime, that whatever characteristics we have, each of us, and whatever our soul mission is, we're not the only ones. There's actually, apart from there, of course, there are many heroic beings on the planet at any time. But apart from that, there actually are people who are our soul sisters and soul brothers, where we are cut from the same cloth. We are just a slightly bit different, but so much we are the same in what we love, what we feel a resonance with, how we choose to live. So yes, I'm sure that you and I are cut from the same beautiful, radiant golden cloth.
I love that. I love that. You have done a lot of things, but for those of us, or for those that are listening that have never heard of you, tell us a little bit how you got on this path, and I mean, what your biggest dream is obviously around peace and love and grace. But how did you sort of get started? How did this journey begin?
Well, my journey began as I believe everyone's journey begins, which is that we all have karmic roots. So what I have seen in my life is that I've really gone full circle to my childhood. When I was a little girl, first of all, when I became enlightened, a lot of my memory was just dissolved. Wow. There are many, many things, good and bad. It's important to understand good also, not just bad. They're just gone. And timelines are all a blur. It's all a blur of this constant rediscovery of life. And so I love it because it keeps me very fresh. And so I do remember a few things about my childhood, only a few, the important things. And I remember that I sang everywhere I went. I sang at the top of my lungs. My cousins once said that we lived in the country. So we were surrounded by big orchards and country roads, and they lived quite a ways away from us. And so they said they could always hear me coming because I would be singing at the top of my lungs. And I used to run through the orchards. I do have that memory of running through the orchards, and I've always been a multitasker. So I like to be productive in many ways as possible in any one moment. So I would practice jumping as if I was jumping hurdles, because I studied as a child. I was a very big reader, and I read the books. I was drawn to the books of champions, Olympic champions. I was very sporty myself, and I just came in with that champion spirit. I came in very independent, and so I would run and I would practice with my little legs, jumping over the rows of the soil of the dirt where they water. And I would give myself the challenge that I was not to knock over one speck of dirt. And if I did, I had to start all over again and run from one end of the orchard to the other, to sprint from one end of the orchard to the other while singing, because I had to sing. I was like, awesome. Singing was my lifeline, right? So I don't remember thinking about any of this. I remember very few thoughts. I just remember that I did that. I also have a memory of perhaps in the 4th or 5th grade in grade school of writing a play, a musical, and trying to get all my classmates to sing along with me. And of course they didn't want to. And so I would get very frustrated. So it was funny, because then years later when I was touring in different parts of the world and then in the U.S., and I would do programs for church groups and things like this. And so nobody wanted to sing, and I would get them to sing. Of course, I had to coax them a lot and shower them with a lot of love so they would relax and just know that they were great and perfect as they are. and that the important thing was to raise your voice, to praise the light, to praise spirit. So your question was, how did I get started? I believe all of us, we already come in with both the positive and the negative of the karmic samskaras. So these impressions, they're there. However, we will only remember what we need to remember when we need to remember it, because that's what makes for a good play. You know, if you're watching in theater a play or reading a story, well, you can't just jump to the end. You can, but it's not as much fun because there have to be the ups and downs. And so then I say that as a young woman, after I got through my teenage years, I feel like there was shamanic amnesia that fell upon me on purpose. Yeah. Because I really felt I was superhuman, and I really had very little compassion. This is what I feel, that I had compassion. I've always been a very loving being, a very tender heart, but I couldn't really understand this human condition. I felt I was superhuman. I used to jump off of trees and the roof of our house constantly, determined to fly. You relate, right?
Yeah.
And I would get so angry, really angry and frustrated, just so angry. And I don't know if I can't remember if I knew who I was angry at, but I was just angry at this human condition. I was like, no way, no way, no way. I can't fly. So this was always there. Then so I went through the shamanic amnesia period, and then focused on taking care of my family, my mother and my father, and providing for them, and having experiences in the material world as a regular person. But of course, I was never a regular person, and people did sense that about me, and people would gravitate towards me as someone that they felt had strength and had answers that could help them, somehow help them clarifying their path, their life. So many adventures there, many learning experiences that were necessary so that I could understand the human condition. Because if I was not dipped into the color blue, for example, I would never know what it's like to be blue. And if I was not dipped into, the color yellow and so on, you won't know. You have to get immersed in it. And so that gave me the great gift of compassion. Now I understand fully the human experience, the path, and I am moved to tears. Often you'll find I may cry many times during this interview because my love for humanity and for the dear ones, the spirit guides and the divine protectors, it's boundless. It's boundless. And I don't believe that we should keep it a secret. We should cry. We should cry tears of adoration for the light. And we should cry tears of respect and recognition and love for ourselves. Because each of you is unique. You're all unique. You're amazing. You're so great. But when the shamanic amnesia, when there's layers of this upon you, you're not going to remember it. So that's why we have spiritual practices. That's why Great Spirit gave us spiritual practices so that we can discard layer upon layer upon layer and have our true consciousness, our higher consciousness, our infinite consciousness arise within us. So through grace, I was at the right place at the right time to meet my teachers. And each one of them then made a huge contribution in my evolution. So I'm a very big fan of the guru principle, of the teacher principle, because I have experienced a true teacher, a pure teacher, the illuminated being. I have seen it. And so I was so blessed to see that firsthand. And then with my first teachers, who were my gurus from India. By the time I met Don Jacinto, I had been praying and crying so many tears to melt the heart of the beloved, to bestow upon me a shamanic teacher. I was very clear at that point. The longing arose within me that I must have a teacher that was able to heal everything and everyone, that was such a pure being that they would have my respect. It was very important for me to respect whoever I was going to give my attention to. So I had prayed for that. And I also had prayed that this being illumined would recognize me, that they would know that I was worthy to be trained, that they should see me for who I really was. And I cried and I cried and I cried, so many tears. And the doors felt locked and blocked. But one day, finally, through many synchronistic moments aligning, I met Don Jacinto. And that's a whole story I can share with you whenever you wish. That has many funny moments and great moments. But I met him, and then he gave me the last empowerment. Before that, I had difficulty understanding darkness. I had difficulty accepting it, the existence of darkness. I didn't get it. There were blocks on my mind. There were these blocks that could not allow me to understand that both exist, the light and the darkness. So I resisted that so much, even though I was doing all these mantras constantly, and I was also feeling psychic attack constantly. Couldn't sleep during the night like many people, and especially sensitive people experience. But when I met Don Jacinto, from the minute I met him, he said, from now on, you're going to sit beside me in the consultations, and you'll listen in, and you'll observe. And so then I saw case after case after case that came in of people with very serious psychic attack or illnesses. And I saw that through grace, through his great devotion to his path, to the light, he was able to lift those evil spells and those dark conditions. So that was my final empowerment. Nice. And then once I mastered what he had taught me, then Spirit put me to work to travel around the world and to go and speak with very many diverse groups, be involved in diverse events, and share that with them in the way that the Holy Spirit, the Mahashakti, desires it be done. And that brings us to here with you.
Well, that's a great story. I think we often, as much as there's the potential to come into our remembrance through love and joy, I think we all sort of need to have some sort of something, at least right now, when we're still sort of in the third dimension, that we kind of need to have something that sort of wakes us up. And that's usually done through, some sort of pain or something that we kind of go, wait a minute, this isn't right. This isn't enough. And,
right.
I have struggled as well with the darkness aspect. I took a lot of teachings where, that when they talk about warriors of light, they really were, wanting you to be a warrior to fight the dark. And it was just, I found it fascinating. It wasn't part of me. And I didn't feel that was something, as much as I understand that there are a lot of people that need help, I still think most of the people, it's within themselves that, everybody is, we're not given anything unless we can heal it ourselves or work with it ourselves. But I think a lot of times we want to give our power away to everybody else. And that's when it becomes a little bit challenging, because I know I've helped people clear a lot of the darkness, but because they're still holding on to something that is giving them power, they don't really, as much as they say they want to get rid of it, they don't really want to get rid of it. I mean, it's a hard thing. And I want to bring up the fact that although we're recording this and we're not going to actually get to hear it until Friday the 14th, we are actually recording this on September 11th, which is a great day of, where everybody sort of remembers what happened, and how important it is to know that, within every challenge that we have, the opportunity to find love is always there. And I think that's the piece of the remembrance that we keep forgetting. I mean, even when I've been in states of pure bliss, I'll still forget, because I'll get caught up in the everyday world and go, oh yeah, right. Yep, this is not where I want to go. But it's the memories of both. I mean, it's fascinating that you have forgotten a lot. I wonder what that would be like. I think we overemphasize the skills of our mind. And it's our mind that sort of takes over. And when our mind takes over, we can't quite get into our heart. But,
Yes, I agree. I agree on all of that. Well, the thing is that it's the path. Walking the path is a lot like cooking in the kitchen or baking a dessert. There's a lot of steps, there's a lot of ingredients, and there's a lot of techniques you can learn from others, and then there's a lot that you have to learn by swirling the batter yourself, and getting up there and frying that vegetable yourself. Nobody's going to be able to tell you everything. That's not been my experience either. That a lot of, even though I had these great teachers, none of them continue. I have a lot of dreams of them constantly where we're in the dream time together and they're there for me, but they're not telling me every step of my path what I'm going to do next and how it's going to turn out. There's a lot of walking on the tightrope and just jumping off the cliff and trusting. And so for this reason, what is very important on the path is that we must learn the path. We must learn everything that comprises the path, because it's like, for example, a very practical example is if you are going to go from one city to the other or one country to the other, you really should learn about where you're going and what the travel is like and the dangers as well as the rewards and the shortcuts and as well as where you can get lost. A wise traveler is what we must be, a wise traveler. And what happens in the human condition is we get very distracted and we fall in love with things that are not going to save our life when the moment depends on us having that knowledge. So we fall in love with our favorite television program, with our favorite foods, a lot of distraction. And there's nothing wrong with enjoying those things. But what I want to share with everyone is, and I share this all the time, this is how I live, is I don't get distracted. I can enjoy everything. I like chocolate, for example, dark chocolate. I can enjoy dark chocolate. I can enjoy a good dessert because I do like desserts. And I can enjoy something uplifting. And I can also help people, and I can get into the battle, and I can fight against the darkest of dark forces to help somebody live and be happy and to triumph. I can do that, but I don't get distracted about what it's all about. And what it's all about is our connection to the light, to love. However, how are you going to maintain that connection? You see, that's the part where you say, it's easy, but it's not so easy. It's easy, but as they say, a journey of 1,000 miles starts with one step, and that means every day. Then we should all have, if you want to succeed spiritually on whatever your path, and you can combine paths as far as I'm concerned, and what has been my experience and how I live is I don't have prejudices. I don't have a lot of thoughts about rigidity. It's like, if it belongs to the light, if it belongs to the goodness, if it supports the Dharma, then if it works for me, let's add it to the plate. That's how I eat my food too. Many ingredients. I like lots of tastes and layers. So lots of layers. But we must be conscious when we're enjoying that food, or we could choke on it. And we must be conscious, or we could overeat and go out of balance. So how are we going to then maintain that connection? Is through doing our spiritual work every day, maintaining some set of spiritual practices. And it doesn't have to be cumbersome. On our website, I don't know if you've ever been there, but one of the big things, and in the YouTube videos, one of the big things I recommend to people is a tool I use a lot, which is the Shamanic Healing and Clearing rattle. That particular rattle, is a unique rattle, and it makes this thunderous noise when you use it. And the dark forces absolutely hate it because it dissolves them. It brings in the light codes in such a tremendous way that it dissolves them. And so I use it always. I've always used it in sessions when I used to do personal sessions, and also in workshops, in intensives. And so if you have that rattle, for example, then people that have it, they carry it in their purse or their briefcase, and even in the car, they rattle around themselves. Plus, you have a mantra or two, or you have prayers that you do to this divine being and that divine being. But the key is consistency, consistency, consistency. If you're consistent every time we do something sacred, then we grab on to our golden cord, that channel that connects us to our divine self, our higher self, to the all-powerful love and light, and we connect with it, and now we are its perfect instrument. So if we do it again and again and again, then one day you don't forget that you are holding that cord, that you have the power to grab onto that cord, and that you have the power to make the choice, to choose wisely as to what you do with every thought, with every heartbeat.
Yeah.
So choice. So a consciousness. Wise beings have said the path is not supposed to be a comfortable place. I often like to use the comparison of sports. You're never going to hear a martial artist whine about what they have to do as a workout. If someone wants to be an Olympic champion, they're not going to whine. They're not going to succumb to excuses. They want it. And so that's the key. We must want it. But then again, how can you want something when there are energies attached that then make you distracted and make you think you want something that's of a lower vibration? So staying clear, maintaining your energetic field clear and brilliant and beautiful. Let me tell you something, kids. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. It's a blast. You gotta try it. It's beautiful. It's wonderful. It's radiant. Why? Because it frees you. So if you feel ever like you're in a box, it's because you are. It's the gravity of the earth. It's the societal pressures of all their thoughts, of the humanity's thoughts of limitation. Otherwise, if these limitations were not there, we'd all be singing a lot more and dancing a lot more. We'd be engaging in the wisdom and singing up the power, but we're not, and we're shy about that. And so why is that? There's an energy there blocking who you really are, which is the ever-flowing grace. The Holy Spirit, the Mahashakti, whatever name you want to give to it, it's all about grace. And you can do it, but we got to do the work. We've got to put in the work, and we've got to want it. And if we're not yet sure we want it, then we should pray to want what is for our highest and best and purest. Not because Lori said so, not because Peace Mother said so, but just say, whatever's for my highest, best, and purest, whatever is part of my highest destiny, help me to want that, and help me to master that, and help me to be your great instrument to uplift all suffering everywhere, all the time, in every way possible. Please help me. And then offer up some song or prayer to give thanks for the grace that is always being showered upon you.
Well, that was beautiful.
Spirit is beautiful, and spirit is perfect, and spirit is complete. And so who needs to become more complete so we can realize we're already perfect, that we've always been perfect, is us.
Divine Mother.